in the shadows of the American dream. A deadly empire was growing. Its roots ran deep beneath the streets of major US cities. Its currency was cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and death. At the center of it all stood one man, Joe Aaqun El Chapo Guzman, a name synonymous with fear, corruption, and unimaginable power. But while much of his notoriety stems from his reign in Mexico, the real battleground for his empire was across the border. In this video, we will uncover the details of how drugs cross borders, how money was laundered, and how law enforcement slowly unraveled a criminal network that stretched from Sinaloa to the streets of Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York. Joe Aaqun Archival de Guzman Mora was born in La Tuna, a small village in the Sierra Madre Mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico, in 1957. His family was poor, and his father was involved in the cultivation of opium poppy. Growing up surrounded by the narcotics trade, Guzman learned early about the risks and rewards of the business. He started out working with marijuana growers in his teens, eventually gaining a reputation for being disciplined and ruthless. His break came when he joined the Guadalajara cartel under Miguel Angel Flakes Gallardo, Mexico's most powerful drug lord at the time. Guz managed logistics, ensuring drug shipments reached the US safely. When Flakes Gallardo was arrested in 1989, the cartel split into factions. Guzman took control of the Sinaloa region and established his own network, now known as the Sinaloa Cartel. He quickly expanded operations, taking advantage of chaos among rival groups. What set him apart was innovation, while others relied on bribing officials or smuggling drugs in vehicles. El Chapo invested in building elaborate tunnels beneath the U.S. Mexico border. These tunnels were engineering marvels, complete with lighting, ventilation, and rail systems allowing massive drug shipments to move undetected. This combination of violence, business acumen, and logistical genius turned El Chapo into a kingpin capable of rivaling Colombia's most notorious figures like Pablo Escobar. El Chapo understood the insatiable demand for narcotics in the United States. In the 1990s and early 2000s, crack cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines were flooding communities, particularly in urban and underserved areas. The Sinaloa cartel capitalized on this by establishing direct trafficking routes into American cities. Chicago became a key hub for distribution due to its central location and extensive highway networks. The officials later reported that the Sinaloa cartel controlled the majority of drug flow into the Midwest. New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Phoenix, and Denver were also major targets. Chapo's operatives partnered with local gangs, the Latin Kings, Gangster Disciples, and Bloods to move product efficiently. In exchange for supply, gangs protected routes, handled distribution, and collected money. This decentralized system allowed the cartel to function like a corporation. Drugs were shipped in through border states, stored in warehouses or front businesses, and moved in smaller packages by gang networks to every corner of the country. By the mid-2000s, US officials estimated that up to 80% of the heroin entering America was tied to the Sinaloa cartel. Profits were staggering billions of dollars a year. The cartel began investing in using shell corporations and real estate to launder dirty money. Power attracts protection. El Chapo knew that bribery was as essential as firepower. In Mexico, corruption was rampant, but he extended his reach into the US, where a growing number of law enforcement officials, customs agents, and politicians were targeted. One major case involved a Customs and Border Protection agent who smuggled thousands of pounds of drugs into the country for the cartel, earning over $1 million in bribes. In Arizona and Texas, truck drivers were paid to ignore inspection procedures. In cities like Chicago, Local officials were paid to overlook cartel warehouses or delay warrants. Front businesses like used car dealerships, check cashing outlets, and restaurants became money laundering hubs. The cartel also used professional services lawyers to draft fake contracts, accountants to clean money trails, and realtors to purchase properties under false names. Al Chapo's empire thrived not only because of fear, but because of systemic cracks in American institutions. Despite growing evidence, prosecutions were rare due to lack of witnesses, fear of retaliation, or the complexity of cases. Some insiders claim that certain cartel affiliates were even used as informants in exchange for leniency, further blurring the line between crime and justice. Violence was a critical tool in Al Chapo's strategy. He ruled through fear and ensured loyalty through terror. His sicarios, or cartel hitmen, were often ex-military or trained assassins. Torture, execution, and public display of mutilated bodies were common. In the United States, this violence often played out through proxy wars. Local gangs carried out executions, settled disputes, and eliminated threats. Cities like Phoenix were among the top in cartel-related kidnappings. Chicago recorded over 500 homicides in a single year during the peak of Sinaloa influence. One infamous case involved a Texas family targeted because a member had stolen road money. The entire household, including children, was murdered in retaliation. These acts sent chilling messages to rivals and informants alike. Cartel violence also silenced the media. In Mexico, dozens of journalists covering cartel crimes were killed. In the US, law enforcement agents were warned not to speak publicly about cartel strategies without approval. This reign of terror ensured that fear suppressed dissent and power flowed unchecked. Despite the reach and influence of El Chapo, US federal agencies slowly pieced together the cartel's inner workings. Through sting operations, wiretaps, surveillance drones, and informants, the FBI and she began mapping out the US infrastructure of the cartel. Undercover agents spent years embedded in cartel-affiliated gangs. One notable sting operation, Fast and Furious, controversially allowed guns to be trafficked into Mexico in hopes of tracking criminal networks. While the operation faced public backlash, it exposed some key players in the cartel's gun-running network. In 2010, Operation Black Ice resulted in the seizure of over 1,000 pounds of meth and cocaine and the arrest of dozens of suspects tied to Sinaloa. Distribution cells in the Midwest. Digital surveillance became vital. Agents tracked burner phones, email exchanges, and bank transfers. Informants provided names, addresses, and meeting points. A coordinated database was created to manage intelligence from multiple agencies and jurisdictions. In time, a detailed web emerged, showing how drugs moved from Sinaloa to border towns, then to warehouses in cities, and finally to street-level dealers. In 1993, El Chapo was arrested in Guatemala and extradited to Mexico, but prison could not hold him. In 2001, he escaped from Punta Gran prison hidden in a laundry cart. Aided by dozens of guards, he vanished for over a decade. He was recaptured in 2014 in a beachfront condo in Mazatlán. But in 2015, he escaped again, this time through a mile-long tunnel dug beneath his prison shower. The escape stunned the world and humiliated Mexican authorities. International pressure forced a crackdown. In 2016, after a dramatic raid, El Chapo was recaptured and extradited to the United States. In 2019, he faced trial in Brooklyn, New York. The courtroom heard testimonies from former lieutenants, cartel accountants, and the agents. Stories of bribery, violence, and betrayal painted a vivid picture of his empire. El Chapo was found guilty on 10 counts, including drug trafficking, murder conspiracy, and money laundering. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years and sent to AEX Florence, the most secure prison in the US. El Chapo's A Drug Empire is a cautionary tale of what happens when demand meets ruthless supply. His story reveals the complexity of transnational crime and the blurred line between organized crime and failed policy. Though El Chapo is now behind bars, the Sinaloa cartel lives on. New leaders have stepped in. The drugs still flow, and the violence continues. As long as the American appetite for narcotics exists, there will always be another El Chapo waiting in the shadows, ready to build an empire on blood and addiction.